All right, so should we get started? Am I on?
You are on.
All right, so welcome everyone. Good morning and welcome to Fun with Zoom Meetings. My name is Trina Getchell. I am the Sergeant at Arms for Money Talks in San Francisco. This webinar is being recorded. By turning on your camera or speaking, you consent to be recorded. The recording may appear on District 4's website, YouTube channel. As we get started, please mute yourself and turn off your camera now. You'll have the opportunity to unmute and turn your camera on to applaud and thank the speaker at the end of the webinar. For the best viewing experience, please enable Zoom's Hide Non-Video Participants setting. To enable this on most platforms, click the arrow next to the Start Video button in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom window. Select Video Settings and then check the Hide Non-Video Participants checkbox. During the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask questions via public chat by messaging me directly in the chat. Please limit comments in the public chat to questions for and responses to the speaker. Let's get started with the introduction. Our speaker today is Ray Engan. Ray was a shy little boy who avoided talking to strangers by walking inside the safety of his mom's wraparound skirts. He went on to a career in stand-up comedy, performing with and writing for some of America's best comedians. He began using the skill of connecting through comedy in the business world and became the sales manager of America's most award-winning small business. Ray has testified before a presidential task force and appeared on MSNBC as a voice of small business in America. Before COVID, he gave workshops around the country, teaching America's business leaders how to create a better, happier, more productive workers through humorous storytelling in the workplace with his program, Leadership Through Laughter. Today, he spends part of his day screaming, "Jimmy, unmute yourself." Actually, he doesn't. There's a better way to do that. He has shifted his focus to making the Zoom experience more fun for working professionals, and specifically to create more interesting Toastmasters meetings to help retain and drive members to your club. He is going to make sure everyone walks away with many different interesting Zoom fatigue busting and comedy creating tips. If you miss anything, you can always grab at least 15 different Zoom tricks, tools, and techniques at stopzoomfatiguenow.com. Ray is an award-winning motivational speaker, coach, and storyteller. He is the inventor of the humor algorithm and current Chief Charisma Officer of Leadership Through Laughter.com. Please join me in welcoming Ray Engan.
Thank you, Trina. Have you all started a Zoom meeting feeling young and vibrant and excited? And by the time it's over, you feel like you've aged like 40 years at least. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And the key is to put some fun back in dysfunction and move forward from that. But let me start this thing off here, and hopefully I got this all working and you can see this. That's not the one I wanted, but let's go here. There's what I wanted. Okay. So stop Zoom fatigue now. My company's Leadership Through Laughter. You already heard too much about that in that introduction. I hate this. Unmute yourself. You're on mute, Jimmy. Unmute yourself. So what I want to do, if anybody tries to say anything today and they are muted, I want people in the audience to shout out Rule 13. There are no other rules, just Rule 13. So any meeting I have, if I forget to unmute myself, I just say Rule 13. Now, the other part of being a Toastmaster is I am so sick of jazz hands. So we will have no jazz hands today, even if you like something that I say. Just clap. I understand what that means, but we'll go from that. And by the way, if anybody out there is particularly process oriented and you know who you are, If I walked into your closet, it would be lined up from light to dark. Your shoes are perfectly paired together. If I looked in your cabinets, the soup cans are lined up alphabetically. To those of you that are like that, I apologize, because I am not like that. I'm the guy in the movie that goes, squirrel, right? And off I go. If I do go off on a tangent today, though, I am highly trainable. Just type into the chat squirrel, and I'll come right back to where we were. So Trina, make sure that you're noticing if anybody puts squirrel in there. Now, I didn't know, I should have asked this before, but let's use the chat for this instead of a breakout room. What's the one thing, if you could walk away from me talking and have a Zoom life as good as these two people seem to have it, what's the one thing you could walk away with today that you'd like to know that would make your life better and easier? Put that in the chat right now. And if you could, Trina, read some of those things as we go through, because I'd rather just, I have some things planned, but I want to make sure that I cover what people want. Anything coming through yet?
Not yet. Stay tuned.
Oh, here they come.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So here's one. Oh, there's a lot of them coming in. The first one is from Joanna Tong. Get people to lighten up, not be shy.
Okay. Keep going. Just read them all off. I'll try and cut through.
Next one is from Kathy, Mark, and then it cuts off. How to be kind to self.
Okay.
Next one from Matthew. How long do we have to smile on Zoom? Next one is from Carrie.
Never. Put your own up there.
Make everyone laugh anytime I want.
Okay.
Another one, how to kind to self. And then from Nancy, moving between presentations, websites, and camera view. From George, making meetings more fun. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
And from Derek, get a water cooler conversation going. I like that. From Elena, being bonded with others when Zoom meetings involve over 30 people. From Alan, how to achieve eternal happiness for everyone. Wow. From Mark, how to make your direct dry boss lighten up. Oh, I need to know that. That's all we have so far.
Okay. So a couple of things that'll cover certain things. So if you go to a breakout room, the beauty of a breakout room is if we looked and we had everybody's camera on here, you'd see like 50 people or 25. And the most intimidating thing in the world is walking into a room full of strangers. That's the second after fear of public speaking. But the number two fear that people have is walking into a room full of strangers. And when you go to a large Zoom meeting, a lot of times that's what you're doing, is walking into a room full of strangers. So nobody's going to say anything when there's 25 boxes on the screen. That's part of what the beauty of a breakout room is for, because 4 people on a screen is a lot less intimidating than 25. The other thing is make sure that you assign somebody to speak first. So for example, the meeting I had yesterday, we had we had 3 people in a breakout room, and this was one breakout room, but we assigned it to them this way. So the lowest letter would speak first. So in this group, Mark Zuckerberg had to go first, and then Elon Musk talked second, and then Bezos went third. But you have to assign that to them, or else they'll sit there and just kind of look at each other. So always give people the next step. That's one of the things to make this thing easier. But let's talk about why Zoom is so exhausting. What do you think that is? Why is it, because it is, isn't it? You get off these Zoom calls, but then you can go watch TV all day long, and you can stare at your phone all night. But when you're in a Zoom room, you're done. It's like, I want to take a nap. Well, why is that? Part of it comes back to there's an old comedian from Russia named Yakov Smirnoff. and he came over to America. And one of his jokes that he said was, oh, America, what a country. Here you get to watch TV. In Russia, TV watches you. And that's what we're doing now. If you and I went to a happy hour or had a cup of coffee, we would sit there for hours and we would be not looking at each other, but we're present for each other. There is a tremendous amount of effort to read people when you're watching on Zoom. So this fact that it's one-on-one, and here's the other thing, eye contact is good, right? You've always been told that, but too much eye contact is creepy. And I apologize for the Uncle Fester look here, but that's all I got, right? So how do we do these things? And we lighten people up, because what we're doing, this is not a live presentation. This is television. And you're fighting for the entertainment dollar with other people's homes. You know, whatever it is, the cats, the animals. So we're going to talk about some certain things as a presenter that you need to do, which will help your speaking as well as help your Zoom. I'm going to go over 4 or 5 specific things that you can do to make sure that we have some continuity going, and some tips on Zoom. And I'm going to give you some, then we're going to wind up with specific things that you maybe haven't thought about with your Toastmaster meetings to do that. So when you speak and when you are giving presentations on Zoom, part of this is the devil is in the details. When you speak, you don't say, well, I was watching a school play. You would say there were Dixie cups littered over by the refreshment stand. The aroma of Mrs. Minagawa's 15-cent brownies wafted over 217 proud parents and their hyperkinetic kids leaning forward on squeaky chairs, so silently, though, you could hear the round clock above the door tick, tick, ticking up to 8:23 p.m. So what you want to do, even though there's a picture of you there, you want to create a picture for your audience. While you speak, the more details you can add. This is a speaking tip as well as a Zoom tip. Don't tell people what's going on, show them. So in a speech, you'd use dialogue instead of narration. Here on Zoom, what people do is they just say it. You know, the bird was angry, or they'll have the words out. What we want you to do is don't say it, display it. There's an angry bird right there. And here's tip number 1 about Zoom. A boring speaker in person is even more boring on Zoom. So when we speak and when we're presenting, it's like your walls. Most walls in most houses aren't perfectly flat. There's stucco or lines or whatever it is. So what you're doing with speaking is you're creating a texture as you speak. Toastmasters love the phrase vocal variety. Vocal variety doesn't mean that I talk and I yell loud and then I talk soft. It's all these things added up together. Your voice, your pace. You want to talk quickly sometimes, get things going really quickly, and people will jump out of whatever they're doing. And then you slow things down to make a point, talk softly, move into the camera, and make sure they understand it. So don't just sit there on your couch making your presentation. Use the box, use the Brady box that you've been given to do these things. Your pace is important. Your actions, your words, your expressions are so important now. Use that face. If you're talking about being happy, I love speakers that talk, wow, that was a great speech. I loved your introduction and how you used vocal variety to bring the audience to their knees. It's like, if you're saying something, let your face show it. Let your face show it. Okay, now when you use graphics, look at this graphic. The words are on the left and the numbers on the right. Here, the numbers on the right, or sorry, the numbers on the left and the words are on the right. So, does it look better like this? I'm gonna be like the eye doctor right now. Does it look better like this or like this? Like this or like this? Like this or like this? Put in the chat whether you like to have the number on the left or on the right. The number, not the words.
We're waiting for responses.
Like this.
Okay, it looks like left is getting the most votes. Oh, then we got some rights. No, 3, it looks even.
So the number should be.
Oh, someone did say it should always change.
Should always change. Okay.
Sounds like it's subjective.
It is. If you really look at it, it's about 2/3 of the people normally, when you do this, will prefer to have the number on the right-hand side of the screen. The words go on the left. And this comes from the head of the NSA, the National Speakers Association, who's also a professor at Stanford. Our brains are kind of wired to see words on the left and numbers and images on the right. When you give PowerPoint live, you always stand with the screen on your left, because you want people to look at you first. Or actually, I guess that would be, I get so screwed up on left to right because I'm a little dyslexic here. But so people read from left to right. You distract people if you're on the right-hand side of a PowerPoint screen. So how many did I show? I showed 5. Well, let's talk about 5 quick ways for you to make a better Zoom presentation. And the first one is the co-host. There's co-host. I'm going to talk about spotlight celebrations. You can also use a spotlight seat. I want to put the fun back in Dysfunction. I want to use breakout rooms. I want to use the chat box. And then, see, this is how you do this. I said 5 things and I put a 6 on there. So somebody's going, he said 5 and there's 6. Well, guess what? You're thinking about what I'm saying. And you are fighting for the entertainment dollar, and you have to change these things as quickly as you possibly can. I've probably given 23 slides already, and we're not that far into it. If you saw me talk live in a whole day of speaking, I would give 2 or 3 slides the whole day because I can hold your attention. Here, you have these different options with the slides, with the chat boxes, with the polling is another good thing, but you've got to change the state of your audience very quickly to hold their attention. So let's talk about the co-host. The co-host is something that, and as a Toastmaster, what I'm going to suggest you do for your meetings is have 2 Toastmasters. If you have 2 Toastmasters, people go back and forth. Going back and forth is like watching a tennis match. You will pay attention to the ball as long as it's moving. When it stops moving, you look elsewhere. So this is the way we do it on Zoom. And these co-hosts can be planned or unplanned. So let's say Trina and I were going to be co-hosts for this meeting, and all of a sudden Trina didn't show up.
What?
You're not there. You're unreliable, Trina. So what am I going to do? Well, I want to have a co-host so I can use planned or unplanned. Trina was the plan, so what's plan B? Well, all these things down below are plan B. This guy right here is one of my favorite co-hosts. He winds up co-hosting things that I don't have a co-host for. I've also done panels where I have pictures of 3 old girlfriends and I share ideas and they comment on my ideas. Some reason they never like my ideas, which is a cool thing there. But whatever it is, planned or unplanned, you can pick up anything that's in your, I could have an interview with somebody and Trina, what do you think about that? And I can just hold that out and she's supposed to answer.
What do I think about that? I think it sounds great, Ray.
Yeah, you're on radio station RAY. Inanimate objects are fantastic. Mark Brown, World Championship of Public Speaking, gave a speech on using inanimate objects as characters. And I took that and I gave it to my club. And within 6 months, I had a speech about my piece of luggage. named Jack that wound up winning the district, but he got lost and went to Paris, and I went to Kentucky, and how he got back, and he explained how turbulence works. But you can use the same thing here with, what have I got here? Oh, I've got old communication styles and things coming up, from different planets that hello, I have a space modulator. And you can use this as your co-host. You can use pictures as your co-host. Here's the other thing. I can pick anybody in my club to be a co-host. And this is a great way to do it. This thing here, if you give presentations or teach, onlinestopwatch.com. Let me see if I can bring that up here. Here is onlinestopwatch.com. It's not just stopwatches, it is name pickers. So for example, if this was my club, I'd have all my club's names loaded in there, and boom, look at that. Trina, look, you came out first. So I would say, Trina, you're now the co-host. And I would have Trina host the meeting with me. Back to here. I love, it's kind of like the ultimate table topic. So Trina, you didn't know this, but you're going to be the co-host from here. And what do you think about our schedule? Boom, there it is. So she's got to talk. Now, here's something that I haven't tried yet, but I know it would work. I would go onto Toastmasters International Facebook page. And if I didn't have a co-host, or I didn't have a co-Toastmaster, I'm going to put there a day ahead of time. I have a meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I would love to have a co-host from another club. Give me your information. There's 350,000 Toastmasters. You don't think one of them is going to say, I would love to be your co-host? Well, I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but I'll fill you in as we go. Oh, that's fantastic. I'll do it anyway. I would do that. That's another thing. Drop a line to me. I'd probably be your co-host. So the co-host is a fantastic way to perk up your meetings and have some fun with it. Now, the next category is the spotlight celebration, not stoplight celebration, but spotlight celebration. When people are speaking on Zoom, and the business is part of what you do, and people get uptight with people interrupting their meeting, something happening out of control. I think that should be celebrated. So when I give meetings, I give awards for the best pet or spouse interruption. They get a bonus point if it's just the tail of the cat coming through. I've done, what else have we done? We did all kinds of things where we had, well, here's the best tip I'm ever going to give you. If you're in a business meeting, and if you haven't been listening up till now, listen now, because this is the coolest thing ever. If you're at a business meeting, your boss calls on you and you really don't feel like talking, and you're not doing that well at work, and you need a little extra time to think about what you're going to say, all you have to do is and then shut off your camera. Okay, just close the whole thing down like you dropped off. That was worth the entire price of admission for today, right there, because that is such a fabulous thing, because people do think that you freeze if you do that. Did anybody out there think I actually froze just for a second? Usually it's the organizer going, oh my God, the speaker's frozen right there. So any kind of oddity that you can think of, grab something in your room right now that shows that you have kids, and I'll do that. Grab something that puts a smile on your face. So if I have a meeting that I don't know people in, I'll say, grab something that puts a smile on your face that's really close to you. And then we do that. You can actually do scavenger hunts with these things. Have a list of things that you want people to find in their house. Bring me a hard-boiled egg, and what people will do is they'll bring you an egg. Say, okay, now to win, take the shell off. And that's when people get a little frightened with it. But scavenger hunts are great. One of my favorite things to do is have people go to the refrigerator and find the oldest thing in it with the longest expired date and the end of life celebration that we all throw out the oldest thing that's in our fridge. And if you have the longest the longest expiration date out there, you win the prize. And the prize could be anything. You know, the prize could be a round of applause, and people will fight for that. Okay, so spotlight celebrations. Any questions about any of these things so far? What, you seen anything, Trina?
We do have some questions that was related to your section on images and words and where they're placed.
Yes, because I know I screwed that up.
No, that's not what the question about. So one thing was, people were asking, like, well, what does that say about people who read, what does that say about people who read languages in different directions?
So when you present, in most areas of the world, people's eyes go from left to right. But if you go to any I'm blanking on countries right now, but there are other places in the world where they read from right to left. If I was in the United States, I'm going to stand on the left-hand side of the PowerPoint screen so people can look at me and then go to the words. If I'm on the other side of the world, I'm going to stand on the other side of the PowerPoint screen. It feels awkward to me when I do that, but people understand that. Yep. Oops, I put that on there.
Interesting. I really liked what you said about having two Toastmasters, and what came to my mind was a lot of talk show hosts will have a co-host, and their interaction is much more entertaining and engaging than just with one host. So I appreciate that comment there. Someone had a question. What are spotlight celebrations?
Spotlight celebrations are just things that draw attention to the things that people try and hide. So people try and hide the spouse walking in the room. People try and hide the pet jumping in the lap. Some companies are much better at it than when this whole thing started. This is kind of an evolving type thing, but anything that is odd that happens to you should be celebrated, not a source of embarrassment, is really what a spotlight celebration is. I was giving a presentation in a room. It was near, it had all these hearts were on the back wall. And so I'm talking, and I know people can see the stuff behind me. And I heard one of them drop. It fell off the wall. And what happens if something happens, like when a phone, another spotlight celebration, the phone going off. Okay. If the phone goes off, like if I heard a phone ring right now, I would say something like, we have a question, right? Or if you don't recognize that interruption, your audience will go to it. They're going, oh my God, I wonder is that my phone ringing? You know, and they all worry about it because they're not thinking about what you're saying at that moment. They're thinking about checking their phone and doing that. You have to celebrate the interruptions that happen on Zoom. If you don't, you lose your audience. And
I love that.
Cool.
Yeah, I was in church one time and someone's cell phone went off. And the pastor said, that's God calling, telling you it's time for church. So is that what you're kind of saying? That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's exactly where my mind went. I go, oh my God, the Lord has a cell phone, you know? And for example, when that heart, I heard it drop and I know everybody saw it. And I just stopped what I was talking about. And I said, my heart sank. I love it. You know? And so now everybody's on the same page with it. That's a great piece of advice. You know, when things don't go as smoothly as you like them, it's like turning lemons into lemonade. Exactly. And actually, if you really, well, the thing about the fridge, if you don't take stuff out of the fridge, like I put some oranges in the crisper when I was in college, and I found them 6 months later and they turned into avocados. It was amazing. They were green and sustainable oranges. That's great. We have another question here. How do you fit interruptions like that into a time-bound meeting? Time-bound meetings are tough, but you have, like, if oddities happen, you have to talk about them. You are, like, every Toastmasters meeting is a time-bound meeting. And if you take up some time, something else has to give.
Don't let meetings go longer than they should. Take what you missed and schedule it for the next meeting. That was before COVID. You don't want to have an hour-long meeting and take 2.5 hours to do it. So you have this hour, use that hour. There are tons and tons of wasted time in meetings going back and forth. I haven't had that much problem with it. You don't do all these things at once. You do a little piece here. The message of today is, grab a picture of you in high school and let's see who had the worst haircut, and that could be, plan for 5 minutes of some sort of oddity. That's what I like to do. Or the co-host can do that. Now, here is the third category is putting the fun in dysfunction. One of the ways you do this, like for example, word of the day, twice in my club, I've completely made up the word of the day. I created a word, I made sure it did not exist. Like one of them was drivet, D-R-I-V-E-T. And that is the core belief of how much you believe in your goals, the drivet. So I took drive and rivet and I kind of made up what that might be. But people went off and started talking about drivet, and now it's a word in our club. But we just created that out of nowhere. The other thing that people have done is they make these table topics so difficult. Tell me about a book you read or a show that you binged on. Anybody can answer that. Make it simple and you'll be rewarded with some fascinating things. Try and get too complicated and you knock out half your club from doing this. And that's when people turn their screens off and don't want to be called on. The simpler, the better. And I learned this in a weird way. I didn't really want to be Toastmaster, and they kind of made me be Toastmaster. And so I put out the theme of the day was the C word. In my mind, I just put that out there. These people came up with so many different C words to do all the roles they had, and none of them were the one where you first went to. It was just amazing to see what came out from simplicity. Because if you give some simple instructions, the mind can do whatever it wants. If you give too much instructions, the mind gets confused, and a confused mind says no. Now, let people hear laughter at your club. So my background is in comedy, and Zoom is hard to hear laughter. So what I usually do is I'll have the Brady Bunch sitting there with the 25 people, and I'll assign 5 people that are living by themselves to laugh as loud as they can. And that will be number 1. And I'll hold my finger up. We do this at the beginning of the meeting. So all of you living alone, laugh as loud as you can. And you can hear it come through and it sounds great. The reason I choose people living alone, if you just sit there in your room and start laughing, people look at you funny, right? So there's laughter, and what are the other things that speakers love to hear? Ooh, So I'll have people that have spouses sit there and go, ooh, because it kind of sounds kind of sexy. So I figured I'd put that in there, maybe start something, right? There's other thing with applause. We'll have some group just applaud, and I do this. And they get assigned numbers. So I can sit here and go 1 and everybody laughs. 2, ooh, 3, applause. And it creates this energy right in the beginning that allows, it's very different than the normal, okay, will the sergeant at arms please call the meeting to order? Oh, yeah. So it's just a different way to influence people. The other thing as a comedian, if you want people to laugh, you have to get people to understand it's okay to laugh. So if I'm looking at 45 people on a screen, and let's say Trina laughs, well, what does laugh look like on Zoom with no sound? Yeah, you throw your head back. What Trina does here, this is typical laughter behavior. And if I see that on my screen, I'll say, oh, look, Trina gets it. And everybody looks at Trina laughing and they go, oh, it's okay to laugh. So you have to coach your audience differently in Zoom to laugh all by themselves in complete silence in their own home. But you can do it. You win the battle of, and none of these things are, these are all little things that add up to a big thing. You can't do all these things in one meeting, but these are little pieces that add up as we go. Now, in breakout rooms, this is number 4. They're not used enough in Toastmaster meetings. Why not have a meeting with an escape room theme? So you lock people in a room and they have to give you the right answers to things before they get out. You can have prizes. You know, if you're on the executive committee and you want people to run for office, say, stay in there until one person agrees to be the secretary or agrees to be the VPE, you know, whatever it is. It's less intimidating than talking to whole groups. We talked about that. It adds engagement faster. So if I start you off in breakout rooms, you talk faster than if we start in a large group. The other thing, and this is something that we did as well, have 2 different table topics rooms, 2 different table topics leaders. Ask questions, have them vote for the best table topic, come back to the group and have the final, you know, the champion of the club for the day, go one versus the other. People get competitive. That's especially if your club is competitive. It's a fun thing to do, all kinds of different things. Okay. Now, the other thing, number 5, is the chat box. Okay, this slide didn't come out. I didn't say cat box, I said chat box. What the chat box does, it adds another layer to your conversation. So what happens in a Zoom meeting is I'll get distracted with somebody and I'll start texting back and forth to that person with my private chat, which is okay. But if I'm a presenter and I wanted to get you back, I'll say, go ahead and put yes in the chat box. And what happens then is everybody starts putting yes in the chat box and your conversation goes up and you can't find it anymore. And you go, whoa, what's going on? And then you come back to me. So I should have done that with a chat box several more times during this presentation. But I knew that I had too much stuff to talk about in too little time. So let me get to some Toastmasters ideas you may have never thought. Talked about the dueling table topics. Have a part of a meeting where if I ran Toastmasters, this is how I'd make it more fun, and let your club come up with answers to that. What would your pathway be called? If you could create a pathway for Toastmasters, what would it be called? We've played match game. We've done Jeopardy. There are, I love this one. You give a speech, quick round robin evaluation. You get a experienced Toastmaster to take that Toastmaster into a breakout room, work with them for the rest of the meeting, have them come back and give that speech again and have it and see how much better it gets in one meeting with a little bit of coaching, right? One of my favorites is the reverse meeting. So you start with adjourning the meeting and you work your way backward. So the evaluators give their evaluation before they see the speech. You know, when you fell down walking onto stage and how you recovered, that was fantastic. So then the speaker has to listen to what the person's saying and add that into their speech. Invent a business day, and all you can eat restaurant that delivers. That's what our breakout room came up with. The match game Jeopardy are still on there. Okay. Slides against humanity. I like that one. We played the Price is Right, game shows. More cowbell in your meeting, whatever it is, you have these things there. Little things that draw attention. Create 28-second stories. Tell a story in 28 seconds. Give them the light at 22 seconds, right? Wrap up in 6 seconds. The world is faster now. On Zoom, you got to be faster. 1 minute table topics instead of 2.5. You know, do what you need to do for the competition, but this is how you keep things fresh and fun. Okay, so that's a ton of stuff. Questions?
All right, we've got a few more minutes for questions, and wow, you've given us some fantastic tips on making our Toastmasters meeting more engaging and inclusive, and to retain people and bring people in. So thank you for that. We do have some questions. Someone made a comment. They agree with you about table topics, not to make them so complicated. The comment was from Ellen, I got questions that I might have to Google for 10 hours and still couldn't get an answer. Simple table topics, a one-word color, red. Let's see. Tim Carlisle had a shameless plug-in for a new Toastmasters club. Reach out to him at Joker Lounge in San Francisco.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Had to call you out on that, Tim. Okay, let me go down here. Oh, about laughing. Now, when you talked about letting people hear laughter and clapping, I love that. My question for that would be, do you think it adds to the speaker's performance? In other words, I like to see that kind of feedback, that media feedback. Can you comment on that?
Well, and here's the problem with the competition. I did the area contest last night, and you have everybody turns off I can't even see people, right? And so you do, a speaker draws off the energy of the crowd. So you have to create that in yourself. But that's what that's the rules of the competition. So you have to deal with it. But in your Toastmaster meeting, you don't.
Okay.
You don't. And so I would rather have people unmuted. I would rather deal with interruptions, and I would make that fun. I would make that like an improv class. Yes, and, oh my God, that happened. Yes, and let's see where we can go. Oh, look at that. All his food fell on his chest. Oh, I bet that hurt. Whatever it is, you do with that.
All right. And Derek asked, should we add a laugh track?
I did right at the beginning of COVID. I did an event, and I talked for 15 minutes, and then they published the event, and they went in and they added the laugh track. It sounds weird. It's like watching a 70s sitcom. If John Ritter is going to come and knock on your door, yeah, put it in there. But I'm not a big fan of laugh tracks.
Okay. All right. Alan asked, evaluator gives evaluation without the speech. Wonder how it could work.
I loved what you said when you opened with the high energy that you had. It was unbelievable. I love the question you asked at the beginning of your speech and the way you wrapped it up at the end. That was fantastic. It was that place where you got stuck in the middle that really confused me. So I just have to be, and you really got to, it's really a lot of work to put one of these meetings on, and the hardest role is the Toastmaster, because you got to go backwards. But as the speaker, I have to listen to what my evaluator says and incorporate that as much as you can. It's a lot of fun if you do it, but it does take work. It would be the most preparation you'd have to do for a meeting.
All right. Thanks, Ray. This has been a ton of fun. I've loved being your moderator. If anyone has any additional questions, because we are at our time limit, if anyone has additional questions, please reach out to Ray or put them in the chat for him. Thanks again for letting me be your moderator.
Thank you, guys.